up with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Last week was the first time that we were back, and today is our second week. Woosah, what's been going on this week? How have you been? 617-282-0062. Give me a call, check in. I want to hear your voice. I miss your voice. Before we get into news, you should know, I do want to do a weekly check-in. So, first and foremost, as far as the children are concerned, Anari is currently 16. Anari is a 16-year-old. He's ready to drive. He's ready to get his license. Asaria just came back from Louisiana, Georgia, and Alabama. She took a trip to go see different slave quarters, different plantations, to learn history, to learn facts. I'm not the biggest fan of her school due to the discipline and how they discipline and how they over-discipline. The school-to-prison pipeline is a real thing for their school, but I do appreciate them going above and beyond when it comes to educating 98% of their students, which are students of color. Aside from that, this week I watched Ava DuVernay's rendition of the Central Park Five, the story of the 5 young men from 1989 that were accused and tried and found guilty of raping a woman in Central Park. And this was the same incident where Donald Trump put out an article. He spent over $50,000 to put out a full-page ad in the New York Times to discuss and to bring back the death penalty, to advocate for the death penalty. And congratulations, Donald Trump. As president, he saw them be exonerated of all crimes. If you've already seen the show, I know your heart is broken. If you haven't, I know many people is like, listen, I can't watch it. I will never be able to watch it. I already know the story. That's enough for me. Like, I'm sick of putting myself in a victim mentality and watching this pain and suffering continuously over and over again. But I have to tell you, Corey's story and the story of the Central Park Five, I never cried so hard in my whole life for people I didn't know, right? Or like a film and the reason why is because Corey was the most innocent of all that were convicted. Yet he got the harshest sentence, and because of his age, was sentenced to an adult prison. I think about Corey's story and how many, Khalif Broda, the story of Khalif Broda. Do you know how many people have to take a plea deal? That take a plea, that are not guilty of X crime, but you don't have an attorney. You don't know law enough. You don't speak English well enough to articulate your innocence. And so you take a plea. You cop out. You do those 18 months. You do probation. It's on your record. It's on your Corey. One of the things that I hated for Corey was the fact that every time that he had his hearing to be released, they were like, are you ready to admit to your crimes? He's like, no, I'm not guilty. I'm not. Corey could have came out sooner had he said, yes, I admit the guilt of my crimes. I did it. I'm ready to leave. But because he stuck to his guns, his integrity, and they even showed a moment where they were in probation, 2 of the other boys who were then men were in a probation type setting, and she was just like, are you guys ready to admit? And he's just like, listen, I didn't admit it in front of the judge. I didn't admit it coming out. I'm not going to admit it here. She was like, so you ready to get kicked out of your 5th meeting? He said, shoot, I guess this is number 6 then. How many men and women and brothers and sisters are in jail, rotting in a cell right now for not being guilty of a crime, but being guilty of poverty, being guilty of not having the money, not having the funds that it takes to bail out? And that's one of the things that Rachel Rawlings was fighting for and is fighting for in her 80-page memo about some of the quote-unquote decriminalizing criminals. If you read any of the newspapers, no cash bail means we're not going to hold you in jail because you're broke. It broke my heart. I hated watching it. And I cried for everybody who ever had to plead out. I cried for all of the brothers, especially back in the day. If we're looking today in 2019 at people being, set up by the police, drugs being planted, guns being planted, police straight lying. We have video cameras all over, body cameras and video cameras of other people taping the police. So imagine what this looked like 30 years ago. Imagine what this looked like 25, 10, 7 years ago, and how many people are currently in jail for a crime that they truly did not commit. I'm still bothered by the Malia Davis case, just thinking about how she suffered. And there's so many more. There are so many more. That was a comment from online. There are so many more. So without any further ado, one of the things that I love to do is to give you some information and let you hear what's going on in the world. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm sick and tired of the news portraying 1 or 2 things that are going on, and it's on a news cycle and plays every 15 minutes, and it's the same 6 stories. Something sad, something angry, something violent, and a nice little puppy to throw on the side. Or maybe a grandma that had a diploma at 96. Not to say that my news is any happier, but it does give you an overall view of what's going on in the world. So first and foremost, Connecticut will be the first state to collect prosecutor data to study racial bias. It's 2019, and we're just now looking at these numbers. Similar efforts to increase prosecutor accountability are underway across the country, but Connecticut is the first state to actually start collecting data in order to study the racial bias. So I said this in a meeting, and I'll say this on air, is time and time again, we are the victims, or people of color tend to be in the victim position more often than not. And we live these experiences. So while statistics are underway and while studies are being had, we're living this experience, and we've been complaining over and over again. No one's listening. But when those numbers come out, it's like, oh, wow, this is brand new information. What are we supposed to do about this? Well, we've been telling you for the last 30 years, and we've been begging you, and we have protests, and we have speeches and marches, and we have the statistics from when we analyze ourselves, but we have to wait for these Harvards and these MITs and, actual state entities or quasi-governmental entities to actually give the numbers, the disparities that are lived experience for millions. So congratulations, Connecticut. Thank you. Right here in the New England area. So hopefully that's something that we can adopt and adapt to. The Statue of Liberty. Many people don't know the history of the Statue of Liberty. We see her and we're like, oh, it's big, it's beautiful, it's green. But the Statue of Liberty was created to celebrate freed slaves, not immigrants. And museums are now opening their eyes. Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about how the Statue of Liberty has a chain on her ankle. Again, the statue was to create a celebration for freed slaves, and that's why she has a broken chain around her ankle. And when Dr. Joy DeGruy went to the Statue of Liberty and they were doing the tour, she actually started like spearheading the tour because she knew more about the statue than the people who actually worked there. After conversations and hierarchy, they now, when you take the tour of the Statue of Liberty, now tell you about the chain on her ankle. The Lady Liberty was inspired by the end of the Civil War and emancipation. The connection to immigration then came later. The new Statue of Liberty Museum in New York boasts a number of treasures. The original torch, which was replaced in the 1980s, so it's not green. It's copper. There's a replica of the Lady Liberty's face and recordings of immigrants describing the site of the 305-foot monument of back in the day when they first came. And there's a plaque with the famous "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." That wasn't added until 1903. And I thought this was interesting, especially now for Juneteenth. I know a lot of people, maybe not many listening, but nationwide, June is Pride Month. The Pride Parade, the LBGQT. My daughter would kill me because there's like 17 other letters. So it's the alphabet, right? So those, and I support queers all day. But it's like getting a little lengthy as far as letters are concerned. June is Queer Month, or LBGTQ month. And a lot of people have forgotten about Juneteenth and what Juneteenth means. I know Roxbury has a celebration, the Roxbury Day Parade. I know the quote-unquote Big Head Museum, which is actually the Museum of African American Artists. I know they do something. They had a huge celebration for many years. I was actually the recipient of one of their awards last year, 2 years ago. But overall, Juneteenth isn't something that's celebrated. And a lot of people don't know about what Juneteenth is and why it's important, or the truth about the Statue of Liberty, or just facts that we all should have learned in high school to know a little bit more about who we are and where we come from, and to understand his story. But of course, the victor writes his victory, and those that he defeated have lies told them. And then when you let, quote unquote, your enemy educate your children are left uneducated. I say all that to say we are going to take a quick break. I am Tayla Andre. Waking Up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. We have so much to talk about. If you are listening, my love, 617-282-0062. I am Tayla Andre from 5 to 7 a.m. I am Tayla Andre from the Good Life Morning Show. I am Tayla Andre from all the signs that you see around the city. I am Tayla Andre. And when you get a chance, I want you to tune in on social media, TaylaAndre. We'll be right back. Hello, my love. I am at work. And I love what I do. I wish I could bring the computer over here. Let's see if it'll work. It might be too low. Ugh. Yeah, I guess we could make it work. How about that? Yay. That's better. We control the sunlight a little bit. How are you? What are you guys up to? And we do need to do better. All the way. We need to do better. And it's not just about us doing better, but when you know better, you do better. So we don't know, and we have to admit that we don't know. And in order to admit that we don't know, we got to let that pride down. So first we got to release the pride, accept the fact that we don't know what we don't know. We got to learn some shit, and then we got to implement it. Because it's one thing to learn things and not implement it. For instance, the first time I ever learned about credit, I was like, I need credit, bro. I don't need credit. I don't want credit. Fuck credit. Like, then I started, when you're a child, you act like a child, but as an adult, you have to think like and act like an adult. And I just, at the time, was not ready to accept that credit was going to be a major part of my life. Once I actually, it's different from knowing something and experience knowledge. And once you get burnt and once you get your life fucked up, you turn around and you're like, yo, reflection, 2020 hindsight, what could I have done differently? And you're like, yo, I had the answer. I had the answer and I didn't do right. So it's not only just doing better, it's knowing that your ass don't know shit. And then it's turning around and learning something and then implementing what you learn and then teaching somebody else too. How many people do we have in power right now that do not have mentors, that do not have somebody that they're grooming to take over their seat or to take over their position or to lead beside them? I listen to inspirational things on a regular basis, and one of the things I heard was the most successful people had a team. And I think about that, and I think about how I attempted to be successful in the past without a team, and the team that I have now that's got me out here winning. So we don't create teams for ourselves, and especially women of color. We have been, I attended an event recently and they were talking about how moms are magical and moms just make things appear out of thin air. And it's not that we make things appear out of thin air. It's more so that we know what needs to be done and we just do that shit. And if you're not here in the front lines, helping me grind this out, I'm not going to beg you. We're not begging. We don't beg. If you're not going to help me, I'm going to figure it out. I don't know what the solution is, but we're going to get there. So with that being said, there's a lot of women that need to, open their mouth and ask for help. As a woman, it was really difficult for me to be like, yo, I can't do this by myself. I need help. And can anybody hear me? We're coming back up. Big City 101. Oh, Lord. No. Big City 88.5. I am Tayla Andre. You are listening to Wake Up with Tayla Andre every Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We are in the building talking about news that you should know. In the first segment, we had a discussion briefly about how they see us in the Central Park 5 and how many men and women today are still incarcerated because they took plea deals or they were falsely accused, and how many, that story was really hurtful and impactful because it happened to these young boys that were between 13 and 16 years old. But then we also have to recognize that there are people today that are being falsely accused and in prison for crimes they did not commit, as well as having to cop out and take a plea deal because they do not have cash to bail out. In the first segment, we also talked about needing to take a look at the justice system, and Connecticut really diving in and looking at prosecutor statistics and seeing, are there real bias? Even though we talk about it, we know it to be true. They are now gathering the numbers to actually put together a study of our lived experience. And it's not just them. Harvard as well is unpacking the power of poverty. There's a study that picks out key indicators like lead exposure, violence, and incarceration that impacts children's later success. This was social scientists went ahead and put out a study on how your parents being poor impact the level of success you obtain at a later age. They said it's really about trying to understand some of the earlier findings, the lived experiences of growing up in a poor and racially segregated environment, and how that gets into the minds and bodies of children. And this isn't like, I'm not a social scientist. I don't have master's and doctorate degrees, but it's just common sense. When you think about science as a whole and energy never dies, it just transfers, and you think about the transferable energy, and then you take a look at an apartment building that has, 10 stories and 5 apartments on each floor, all of those energies in one building, and you wonder where conflict and violence comes from, with no trees and no grass and, very little resources to elevate or to climb up the ladder of success. For me, it just feels like common sense. It feels like something that we should just know, and something that we should be attempting to fix. I feel like the answers are pretty solid as well. Like, curriculum. Honestly, I think the answers are within itself. We all know the answers. There is nothing outside of yourself. Whether you have a question about your significant other, whether you have a question about what you should do with your family, with your future, what you should do moving forward. We all know what the right answer is. You never need to seek an outside source for you to get confirmation. We do, but you don't need to. You're that powerful. And so if we collectively sat down and did the right thing, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make dollars. We do things that doesn't make sense because it makes dollars. When it comes to the environment, when it comes to, moral anything. I watched a video of a river that was clogged up by so much trash and plastic and pollution, and the water couldn't go underneath the bridge because of all this cluttered plastic. So I believe it was in like Czechoslovakia. They went ahead and had a bulldozer scooping out all of the trash and plastic and debris and pollution, and they put it in the truck. No, they put it on the other side of the damn river. Well, Taylor, what were they going to do with the plastic? That's a great question. You should ask the water companies, Coca-Cola companies, anything that bottled liquids. I've said this before. I will always say it. We have transferred the responsibility to the consumer. But the consumer didn't create the bottle, nor did we create the problem. We just consume the product. So I don't know why, and my theory, I believe I'm always right when it comes to my theories, but I could be wrong. My theory is that in the moment of transfer responsibility is when you pay that 5-cent redemption. That's your problem now. Not only do you have to pay this 5 cents, but now this is your problem as well. And ever since I was a little girl, I've always wanted somebody to explain to me and to break down to me why it is impossible and why we have not created a pipeline for us to streamline garbage into a volcano. Volcanoes erupt all the time, right? There are volcanoes throughout the world that erupt on a regular basis, but because people don't live in the general vicinity, Nobody's affected. It's not a problem. The volcano just erupted. So if we take that and, like a conveyor belt, maybe not all the way up to the top of the volcano, but maybe, create a little indent, drill into the rock, to the magma, whatever it is that we'd be drilling into. And we'd have to probably do it every time it erupted, but we'd be literally obliterating our garbage, disintegrating it. It no longer exists. Right now, when you take the trash out, you take the recycling out, and your house is decluttered, how does that feel? How do you feel when you declutter your house? When you throw away all the old clothes you don't wear? When you throw away trash that have been, just storing up papers that are just idle? You feel absolutely amazing. So imagine what Earth would feel like if we decluttered our Earth by means of not having billions upon billions of pounds of plastic and trash and rubbish and tires in the middle of our ocean. That was a soapbox. I do not apologize because it is what it is. These are unorthodox conversations. They're not meant to make you feel comfortable. They're not. A family of an Army veteran demands answers after he died in a Pennsylvania jail and his body was returned without a heart, brain, or a throat. A heart, a brain, or a throat. Cost of a heart. The cost of a heart on regular market, a consulting firm tallies the total cost of different organ transplant in the United States, and while most are expensive, some are very expensive. A kidney transplant runs over $400,000. The cost for the average heart transplant, on the other hand, can be as high as $1.4 million. So this Army veteran that died in a Pennsylvania jail that did not return with a heart, somebody could be having a transplant for upwards to $1.4 million. Heart is 1.4. The cornea of your eye, 30,000. Your intestine, like the lower or large or small intestine, 1.1 million. A kidney, 415,000. Pancreas, 347,000. Bone marrow, 893,000, liver 813,000, 862,000 for one single lung. So upwards to almost $2 million for a set of lungs. And this man, and it doesn't even say the price of a brain, but this man essentially is worth or missing about, if I guess a brain, at $500,000, he's missing about $2.5 million worth of organs. And the black market, or maybe you don't know about the black market. Maybe you don't know that organs are being, when it comes to slaves, when it comes to, and yeah, there are still slaves in the world in 2019, when it comes to migrants, when it comes to like missing children, when it comes to missing persons, blood types that are certain blood types that are rare, some certain, women that are missing with stem cells. There was recently a young man who had the world's first stem cell transplant of bone marrow, like he had a cancer, and he had the first spine marrow transplant, and he regained upper body movement. You don't think that that's going to cost money? You don't think that people are willing to pay for those things, especially when you have money? If you had unlimited amounts of funds and your mother got sick with cancer and all you needed was somebody's heart, you don't think for 5 seconds your conscience is going to disappear in order to save your loved one? Everett Palmer died in York County Jail 2 days after he traveled to Pennsylvania to resolve an outstanding warrant on a DUI charge. His family says his body was returned to them without a heart, brain, or throat. The coroner claimed he died of complications following an excited state associated with a methamphetamine toxic. But pathologists say that his family hired someone to fight this because the death should be labeled a homicide. He was 41 years old. He was absolutely gorgeous. As like his soul is concerned, his family's talking about how good he was healthy. He was amazing. He was a veteran. He loved his family. He wasn't a bad person. He didn't have any like priors or warrants. The truth of the matter is I hate it when we say that in the news that, they didn't have any priors. They didn't have any warrants. They were a really good person. I don't care if you had multiple warrants, if you had multiple priors. Most of the time, people commit crimes for being because they're poor. People rob banks because they're broke. People steal cars because they're broke. People it's most rich people don't commit violent crimes just to be violent. Hopefully I'm making sense to somebody, but I hate the way that we portray people in the news, or we allowed ourselves to be portrayed in the news when it comes to our backgrounds. Our backgrounds should not dictate whether or not we should get life or death. And you should put me on trial before I go see a judge. Relationships nowadays are a joke. There was a comment from the live. DR, many people now are boycotting trips to DR. I've seen on Facebook people are trying to get refunds and no longer take their trip to Dominican Republic. And I get it, but I don't. So Dominican Republic strips thousands of Black residents of citizenship and may now expel them. In 2013, the Constitutional Court of the Dominican Republic announced a decision that stripped an estimated 210,000 people, about 2% of the island's nation's population, of their citizenship overnight. The DR is a Caribbean nation that occupies roughly 2/3 of the island of Hispaniola. The other half belongs to Haiti. And the two countries are divided by nothing more but language, history, and what quote unquote is race. We'll tackle that another day. The division has often been the toughest on Dominicans who are of Haitian descent, aka they're not going to say this in the news, but I'm going to be honest. They are doing an ethnic cleansing of DR. They want to get rid of all of the Haitians, but little do you know, my people, little do you know, DR, you just as Black as them. You just as Negro as they are. Just because you have light skin you don't know about the drop rule. You got a drop of Black, use a Negro. I don't know why. Even Cape Verde. There's a bunch of Cape Verdeans. Cape Verde is an African country. But they don't consider themselves African. Nor do they consider themselves Black. But can be as chocolate as an M&M. I do not understand it. I do not get it. Oh, wow. That means that there are now fears that human rights advocates have warned will be an act of ethnic cleansing. Haitian descent can't prove whether they're Haitian or Dominican or automatically Haitian. It's asinine. It's dumb. DR has a long history of anti-Haitian violence. If they just took common sense and realized that we are no different, we are the same. The island does not have a magical line between the two. So people have been for years going back and forth and back and forth. And you want to know what's funny? It makes me think of like all of the people in the past that have been on like the Oprah Winfrey shows, like, I don't like Negroes, and then test their blood and they're like 29%, Negro. It always be, and even supposedly Hitler had some Jewish in him. He went ahead and hired a Jewish doctor to save his mom. Like, it be the ones that, it be the ones. Be the ones. Shout out to Rep. Conley. Rep. Conley introduces a Housing for All legislative agenda. This took place on June 5th of 2019. He wrote, "Dear colleagues, our Commonwealth is facing an ongoing emergency in the shortage of affordable housing, extreme rent burden, foreclosures, and homelessness. While we can be proud of the work we did in the last session to enact a $1.8 billion housing bill bond, there are many promising pieces of the legislation on the table since this session. As a lifelong tenant and someone who grew up in public housing that was built by the Commonwealth, I believe we must broaden our ambitions and work towards a program of guaranteed housing for all. To end, I invite you to co-sponsor 6 timely filled bills that complement many of the various other housing proposals now before the legislator. The House Clerk has indicated the co-sponsorship window is now open through June 10th. So I say that to say, call your legislators and tell them to co-sponsor this bill. If you're listening to this show and you are in Western Mass, Northern Mass, Southern Mass, co-sponsorship of this bill is Commonwealth-wide. So call your legislator and tell them to co-sponsor this bill. The bill HD 1100, an act enabling local options for tenant protections. It prohibits cities and towns from considering basic rent stabilization and tenant protection programs. With this legislation, they hope to bring all of the stakeholders together. That means renters and owners to have an honest discussion about best ways to prevent displacement. 1118 HD 1118, an act requiring zoning for multifamily housing near transit. Last year, in testimony before the Joint Committee on Housing, Northeastern University housing expert Barry Bluestone suggested that cities of Boston, Cambridge, Somerville probably account for roughly 3/4 of all the new multifamily housing currently permitted in the 174 towns that make up Eastern Massachusetts. While the governor's housing choice bill offers somewhat a one-size-fits-all approach to address the need for increase, 1118 specifically focuses on the places that are served by transit and requires that at least some multifamily housings be allowed right within the 1 mile of transit. But I personally, my 2 cents, I would say that right now we have a 25%. If it's 25 to 30. So if there's 10 units, 3 of them are quote unquote affordable housing. And affordable housing doesn't necessarily mean low income. It means according to the area median income, aka the federal government is including Newton in the AMI. So even though 50% of Bostonians make less than $30,000 a year, because Newton is so high, that balances us out at like 91,000. And so a lot of the affordable housing go anywhere or aim anywhere. Like the lowest is 50,000, like 50 to 90,000. At $90,000, you're capped off for like a family of 1. It's absolutely insane. But I feel there are things that are missing. There's like HD 1992, HD 1124, HD 2847. Like this is, I know it's boring. I know it's like listening to it, but these are the things that directly affect all of us. If you live in the city, this directly affects you. The language is boring. It's absolutely, Bueller. But at the end of the day, if this is the stuff that you refuse to pay attention to, don't complain at the end. Next up, as far as news you should know, court papers say that training document designed to exclude Black jurors in murder cases. Again, these are lived experiences, but lived experiences are not being taken into account, and they're waiting for studies. They're waiting for, facts to come through the numbers. If you just keep your eyes and your ears open and listen to those that are living the experience, you won't need to spend all this money on research. And if for those who don't know, research is extremely expensive. Russell Williams Tucker, 52, is currently serving time on death row after a jury convicted him in February 1996 of first-degree murder to the death of Maurice Trayvon Williams. Williams was a security guard at the Kmart store. According to testimony, Tucker fired at another security guard and missed and fired 5 times into the police car as he ran away. His attorneys are saying that, the 2 prosecutors that tried the case took information that wasn't true and basically planted this murder on him. Aside from that, he did not have a jury of his peers. Now, a jury of your peers are people that look like you, people who think like you, people who act like you. That's what peers, right, are supposed to be, not just people of the same age. And, from the beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America, we have to ask whether or not just in murder cases, but in all cases, should there be a balanced number of minorities, people of color? Like, should a jury of your peers actually be your peers? And I think that's a good question, and maybe even a good idea. Like, people that actually went to school with you, people who actually work with you, a jury of your peers, people who know all sides of you that can properly judge you. I think actually, if I can be honest, I think that's probably a better idea than 12 random people that never knew you, that never met you. I'm not saying your mama, because that might be a little biased, but people that you went to school with that know your character, a teacher, a mentor, people that can actually say, you know what, this person, we know their lived experience, and based on that, we would like to give them A, B, C options as far as punishment is concerned. What if that was an option? Would you accept that as an option? I would, actually. I think that would make more sense than the system that we use now, especially as far as bias is concerned. But now I think about how it's also a slippery slope, because if we have a jury of your peers, the police investigating the police, I investigated myself and found I did nothing wrong. And a jury of people who don't like police, we investigated ourselves and found the police guilty. So I do see how that is a slippery slope, but maybe there could be a way that we could work the 2 out. I don't know. In other news, China donated 200,000 bags of rice to Kenya. So yay! No. Sorry, not sorry. So the first batch of 200,000 bags has arrived in Kenya and will be distributed to the worst hit counties. I want to say this is great, right? On the Global Hunger Index, Kenya ranks the position of 77 out of 119 countries in the developing world that are on food security. So this might seem disheartening, right? So I completely believe all of the videos that I have seen online of people in China making fake eggs, making fake lettuce, you've seen it, right? It's a bowl of water. They're like, drop, 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 fold, drop, 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 fold, and it's a head of lettuce 90 seconds later. Not even, because you can watch it in a whole 60-second Instagram video. So in 14 seconds, you have a head of lettuce. You have a tomato, and they chop it up, and it looks like a salad. But it's no real nutrients. There's no real ingredients. They even came out with a way to test, because they're saying that some rice is not rice at all, has no nutritional value, and is literally plastic. And if you put it on a pot and kind of, what's that called? Like au gratin it, like kind of burn it a little, that you will see pieces of plastic melt and the rice brown. So the rice will brown, the pieces of plastic will melt. And when I read this story initially, I was like, how many? 200,000 bags of rice. How many bags are are actual pieces of plastic? How much is actual rice? And what do you want? Like, this is not, you don't care about Kenya, China. You don't care about us. So what do you really want? So if you take a look, when I was in Ethiopia, not if you take a look, but I have pictures of being in Ethiopia, and the Chinese are heavily invading. So not just housing that's going up, they are actually building and in charge of the turnpike. So they have a turnpike, sort of like how we have 90. And on this turnpike, it's just miles and miles and miles of road and construction that's being built to move people out of Addis, which is like to move people out of Boston, or to move, a better example would be to move people out of New York City. And the road from Boston to New York to Buffalo is all owned by Chinese. And on the side of this toll roll are these apartment buildings that they're putting up. When I tell you, I didn't see an Asian nowhere in Ethiopia all 10 days that I was there until I hit the turnpike. And then all of a sudden, the construction workers, the turnpike toll workers, the people that like manned security were all Asian. If you don't think the recolonization of Africa is not a real thing, China, Korea, all of them about to own Africa. 200,000 bags of rice. Yay, no, at the same time. In other news, so I read an article. I really want to do some more research as far as it's concerned, but they're saying that a Jewish community has an entire community of Jewish Section 8 holders, and that these Section 8 recipients are all Jewish, and they are not allowing Blacks, Latinos to rent. So there's a couple spotted Black and Latinos that have been in this neighborhood for a while, but they are being pushed out, forced out, and they're bringing their Jewish people in. I really want to do a little bit more digging on this before I say it's fact, but I did find it interesting. It was sent to me. If you have any other stories that you want to send to me and you want to share with listeners, you can go ahead and contact me anywhere on social media, TaylaAndre. Housing. Let's take a break. Let's take a break and let's bring it back and talk about housing, right? 617-282-0062. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we wake up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. We're going to take this quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about housing and the many issues that comes. Can you guys see me? Can you see me? Peace and blessings, my love. How are you? I want to know why you said relationships nowadays are a joke. Can I send this? Can I share this? Yes, we can. Shout out to Faith Naturals. I still use a Faith Naturals everything from the pum pum wash to the yoni steaming to the energy cleansing. I use anything and everything that she makes. All of it is handmade. All of it is all natural, vegan, cruelty to animals free. It's just, I think it's absolutely dope that this woman can go home, whip it up in the kitchen, come back and have an entire line of beauty products. Like, that's so dope to me. And they all work. If you know somebody with eczema, rosacea, fibroids, like, she has it all, literally. So shout out to Faith Naturals, 66A South Street in Jamaica Plain. And she has another spot, 1151 on Blue Hill Ave, right next to the police station. And 9 times out of 10, if you go there, you can find me. So make sure you give me a hug when you see me. So before we took a break, we were discussing housing and how in New York City it's being reported that in certain communities that the Jewish have these Section 8 vouchers and their, friend number 1 owns the building and has friend 1 through 10 living in the building and is accepting all of the Section 8 vouchers while they're putting out Black and Latinos and taking over certain areas of the city. We're going to dig a little deeper and find out the truth of that and how can we do that over here? No, but as far as housing is concerned, the city voucher rates are set to be by zip code. The change will help vouchers be competitive. The Boston Housing Authority will be the first public housing authority in the country to voluntarily set its payment standards for low-income families by zip code rather than a blanket price. So right now, there's different levels to this, right? So Boston is level 1, like Boston, Newton, Wellesley, like a Plymouth and a Duxbury. They're like number 1 because it's really high to live there. And then when you look at a Brockton's like either 2 or 3 on the list. So it's not as high as Boston, but it's not as low as Fall River or Lawrence. And Boston Housing Authority is saying now that they are going to set the payment standards for low income by zip code rather than the blanket price. In a press briefing last week, the BHA announced that it will be adopting a small area fair markets rent in order to encourage families who hold mobile housing vouchers to live in more varied areas instead of the Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Brockton, Lynn, Lowell, New Bedford, Fall River. Instead of just going to where you can quote unquote afford, they're saying that this is going to expand choices for poor families and deconcentrate poverty. In reality, that is not what has happened, said the director, Bill McGoglin. He said, in essence, what we're trying to do is get back to the original intent of the voucher program. Under the Section 8 program, voucher holders pay approximately 30% of their income towards a set monthly rent, while the government contributes the rest. For approximately 13,000 current voucher holders, the payment standard for a 2-bedroom apartment is $1914. What they don't tell you in this article is $1914 is if it includes heat and hot water. If it does not include heat and hot water, it's typically $1,800 with 10% sliding scale. Through a lengthy study of incomes and rents through the city, the BHA has proposed a new payment standard that ranges from $1,881 in areas of Lake Dorchester and Roxbury to $3,290 for downtown and Seaport for the same size apartment in a metropolitan area. But, so here's where it gets tricky. Right? Because a lot of these landlords, aka owners, want first, last security. And then if you're working with an agent or a broker, you have a fee. And even if your Section 8 is going to pay your first and your last of $3,290, $3,300 for your 2-bedroom apartment in Seaport, you still have to come up with $3,290 for the security fee, as well as the $3,290 for your broker's fee. Now, I do know that they have the RAF program, and RAF typically picks up the cost in first security and broker's fee, but now you're looking at what was once an $1,800 broker fee, now a $3,300 broker fee. How quickly do you think those funds are going to be eliminated? I digress. Current tenants living in the neighborhood where the pay standard has been lowered will not be affected by the changes. Only new tenants moving into those areas will be affected. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, aka HUD, mandated SAFRMs. Dyslexia is so real. So small area fair market rents, SAFMRs, in 24 cities around the country in 2017, and authorized others like Boston to do so on their own. The city has not yet done so. However, because the payment standards proposed by HUD would have lowered what is currently the standard in the city of Boston for many neighborhoods, penalizing families that currently live there, the BHA petitioned HUD to raise the standards, eventually gaining approval for the rates to be proposed now. So for the next 45 days, it's going to be public comment period ending on June 24th, and there's going to be a public hearing held at Copley Square Branch Library at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, June 11th. So this Tuesday, June 11th at 6 p.m., if you have a Section 8 voucher, if you know somebody with a Section 8 voucher, this is going to affect you or has affected you, or if you know somebody, I can't tell you how many people have called me, and I'm a sales agent. So buying a home, selling a home, that's what I do. I don't deal with rentals. That is not my specialty, and so I can't speak on them, but I can speak to this. I have heard from so many people that said, Tayla, I got, I was on the list for the last 8 years for Section 8. I finally got my voucher and I lost it because I couldn't find housing, because I couldn't find a 1-bedroom, because I couldn't find a 4-bedroom, because nobody would rent to me. This program will go into effect July 1st. In a statement, Mayor Walsh supported the proposal, saying that it was in support of the city's housing goals. Our housing efforts have always been grounded in our fundamental belief that every person, regardless of their income, is deserving of a home. We are doubling down on one of the most important aspects of our fair housing efforts, the right for people to choose a place to live that works best for themselves and their family. So shout out Mayor Walsh. Thank you for your efforts. When you're right, you're right. I'll tell you you're right. And when you're wrong, I'll remind you of that as well. Housing in the city of Boston is getting extremely expensive. And I personally feel, I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I personally feel that if you are not attached to the city of Boston, by all means, go out to the suburbs and get you a suburban house. By all means, get your child a suburban education. By all means, get you a suburban yard. By all means, get you a suburban porch. If there is nothing that is Like, if you are not a City of Boston employee, there is nothing wrong for you to do something different. There is nothing wrong for you to move out the city. If you are stressed out, if you have anxiety, if you are, constantly having headaches, maybe it's time for you to see the suburbs and for you to breathe fresh air. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think I'm not for gentrification. I'm not for kicking people out of their homes. I'm just saying, if you can, do so. If you can, girl, run. If you can, do it. And I just want to give a shout out to those that can and have been transforming education. C-Plan Champion Ceremony is taking place on June 20th to celebrate the community, parents, and youth engagement champions of the 3rd annual C-Plan Champion Ceremony. So C-Plan, the Collaborative Parent Leadership Action Network. I am a parent. I believe that the bus drivers have a union that fight for them. The teachers have a union that fight for them. Our parents and our students do not have a union. C-Plan is that voice on your behalf, and we are celebrating the parents and community on June 20th. So please come out. If you are unable to afford tickets, we do have tickets for those who would like to come out. Our annual Champion Award is designed to recognize individuals who have made their mission and truly embrace C-Plan's mantra of all means all, partnering with schools, communities, and or policymakers in pursuit of equitable education, because equality is not equity, baby. Equitable education for all of Boston's children. The awardees are individuals who share the goal of disrupting the status quo in education to provide every child with a well-rounded, high-quality educational experience. Even in the face of various barriers to involvement, C-Plan champions remain focused on our children and persist in meaningful activism. They are the ones who tirelessly advocate on our behalf for our children and promoting system change. Shout out to Julia Mahia. She is the founder of C-Plan. C-Plan has been disrupting the conversation. We've been taking our folding chairs and making space at tables that typically parents do not have a voice at when it comes to our children. I'm so sick and tired of people without kids, people who don't like kids, and people who don't like our kids making decisions for our children. And so with that being said, shout out to C-Plan. Shout out to honoring Lifetime Award Jerry Robinson. Senator Sonia Chang Diaz is being is being honored as well for Education Equity Award. She was instrumental in the Lord. It was just on the tip of my tongue, and it's funny how, like, when you touch your nose, it's supposed to come, it didn't come. But she recently came up with a bill that it felt like the whole city was behind her. Even the New England Patriots, through the New England Patriots, came to the State House to testify that this bill was, against the governor's bill, and the governor's bill was a one-size-fits-all, and it's broken because not everybody fits. It was a dope hearing, and Sonia Chang Diaz has been absolutely amazing. So shout out to her. Shout out to the work that she's been doing. And June 20th at Hibernian Hall, again, you can go online and look at Eventbrite for tickets, but you can also reach out to Julia Mahia on Eventbrite and let her know that the way your funds are set up, you still want to attend, but you may need a little help. I'm sorry, I just read the next story and it just kicked in anxiety for me. Earlier, we discussed pollution. We discussed how in Czechoslovakia, the river was filled with so much pollution that the river was no longer flowing. And so they got a bulldozer and they were scooping out the plastic and scooping out the pollution. And instead of putting it into a truck or putting it into, I have no idea where they would put it. They just, from one side of the river, cross over the bridge and dumped it in the other side of the river. And it just is so asinine to me how we take for granted this one planet Earth that we have. There are exoplanets and other Earths, but we couldn't get there in a million light years. Like, it's beyond us right now. None of us can travel to Earth 2 at this point in time. So why on hell are we not taking care of Earth 1? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't understand your asinine, your dumbass president. Like, I do not understand why Trump administration plans to reclassify high-level radioactive waste as low risk. So even though I am a huge fan of Alex Mack and I wanted some radioactive waste on me so I could transform into a puddle and slide on the doors, you know, that's not the way radioactive material works. Shout out to those who actually got that reference. Why? I know why. Money. Money's always the answer. If you never know the answer, money is always the answer. The Trump administration is planning to reclassify high-level radioactive waste as low risk in a bid to cut as much as $40 billion from cleanup costs at nuclear weapons production sites. A top energy, you just stop making it. Stop using it. Start putting fluoride in the water when it's causing spills and eroding concrete. Stop creating nuclear weapons. Stop, like, the Energy Department called the proposal a responsible, result-driven solution. When I think for 5 seconds, and for those who don't know, I have a huge, like, me and Monsanto don't get along at all. I don't like Monsanto. They make 85% of everything you eat. Monsanto has cancer-causing carcinogens. Like, Monsanto is being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars for giving people cancer, but yet we put them in charge of our food production. Don't believe me, just read. Do your own due diligence, right? When I think about the fact that the FDA allowed Monsanto executives to become FDA executives and then alter policies, change laws, then go back to Monsanto, I have no real hope or trust in the energy department. So you telling me that this is a responsible, result-driven solution means nothing to me when I already know how the establishment works when it comes to one hand washing the other. I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but you get it. A company that is currently being sued internationally for giving people cancer, your government of the United States of America gave them authorization to govern your food. If you don't believe me, please go read. And then come back and let's discuss it. 617-282-0062-885. Big City, Tayla Andre. Waking Up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Waking you the hell up from this sheeple position of you thinking that everything is peaches and cream. Why would my government do that to me? Oh, I don't know. The same reason why they bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, Tulsa, Oklahoma was the first time the United States ever bombed anybody. We bombed ourselves on our own soil because the black people were doing too much. They had airports. They had post offices. They had movie theaters. No, bomb them. The same way we just came up on the anniversary of Philly being bombed. The 13 buildings in Philly that were bombed. Why would my government do that to me? I don't know. Ask the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee experiment. Ask Henrietta Lacks. Why would my government do that to me? I have no idea, babe. This is some good news. Boston Public Schools, the Boston Teachers Union, they reached an agreement on a 3-year contract. On the evening of Thursday, May 30th, BPS interim superintendent Laura, who ran an organization and became the interim superintendent. I run an organization. I could have became the damn superintendent. You had no teaching experience. You had no principal experience. You had no experience. Like, how did you become superintendent? How did that work? Anyways, they announced a tentative 3-year contract that has been signed with the Boston Teachers Union that provides 2% salary increases, which means that our $1 billion budget, 2% of that increases goes to the teacher, while these babies are paying fees. We have high school students that can't graduate, can't get diplomas because they didn't pay quote unquote fees, cash bail in the school system, boo. But the teacher's going to get a 2% salary, and I shout out my teachers that teach. If you're a teacher that teach, you're not taking offense to this, but you already know and can name 5 other teachers in your school that ain't. Name them. Say their name. A full-time nurse in every school, hallelujah, because I was sick of the main office giving kids Tylenol, asthma pumps. Additional licensed mental health professionals, hallelujah, hallelujah. If we sat here and had more student counselors, counselors for these children, we would need less resource officers in here body slamming kids. And I don't mean to say kids because kid is really a goat. I mean children. So a 2% salary increase, a full-time nurse, additional licensed mental health professionals, reduced class sizes for English learners, even though 26 to a classroom is way too much for children that do speak English. 32 to a class is way too much. Listen, if I was a daycare provider and I had 32 children, y'all lock me up. Y'all would lock me up. I would be an endangerment to child. That's a 51A. But yet we give teachers 32 students and say it's okay. Anybody uncomfortable yet? Anybody mad at me? 617-282-0062. This tentative agreement. We're also lowering class sizes and staff ratio for English learners and making it easier for school to hire the most qualified and diverse teachers possible. I'm thankful to the Boston Public Schools and the Boston Teachers Union for taking a major step forward in providing better outcomes for students. We'll see how this plays out. How about that? We have a saying in real estate, and it's really across like life, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Do not. So we'll definitely see how this works out. I'm interested. I hope it works. I hope it works. I hope it keeps good teachers teaching, and I have no idea how to get rid of the bad ones. But you are ruining our children's education. And Trump is ruining our country. So in other news, the Trump administration cancels English classes, soccer, and legal aid for unaccompanied child migrants. My question is, okay, fine, I get it. You hate the migrants. You hate the quote-unquote aliens. You can't stand them. They shouldn't be here. They're stealing all our resources. They're wasting our tax dollars. But you don't complain about no legal defense, weapons defense that has spent billions and trillions of dollars on creating weapons. Remember, it was like there was 4 stealth airplanes that they made that were just prototypes. $1 billion for 4 stealth prototype planes. Ain't nobody complaining about that. But we mad that these little children without parents want to play soccer. They play soccer with rocks, my dude. Like, how you cancel soccer? How much it cost y'all? How much you saving canceling soccer? Yo, that just goes to show, like, what kind of man he is, period. Like, it's not even, we're going to stop feeding them, regular cheese. We're going to give them government cheese. He is so diabolical. Like, I don't get it. Fine, English classes cost money. Legal aid costs money. But how much soccer costs, though? That's your boy. That's your people. We're going to take a quick break. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I want you uncomfortable, but I also want you to, like, I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm trying to open your eyes, trying to get you to see that the world that you think is all peaches and cream, there's other things going on in the news and the sick stories you're fed day to day. Seek them out. And we will be right back. And Dane Calloway. Hello, where is Dane Calloway? Peace to you. It is. It's a Caribbean hip hop station. Yes. Well, a lot of people don't like children. So, yes, not just rocks, but if you've ever been to if you've ever been to the Caribbean, even in Costa Rica, like the children there made balls out of, milk cartons, taping together bottles. Like they used anything and everything to use as a ball. Like, how much is a soccer ball? How much did it cost for not even a soccer ball, like pieces of newspaper, like putting together newspaper and kicking that around. Like, I've seen these children be so innovative and play with things. It's just like, why? That's trash, but they have so much fun with it. We're about to come back up. Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. And today we have just been talking about the news you should know. What's going on in society? What's going on in the world? Once upon a time, I'm 36 years old. 36 years ago, there were hundreds of corporations that contributed to the news, contributed to media, contributed to society when it came to what you see, hear, and read in any form of media. And today in 2019, there are 6 corporations that are run by 6 individuals that are best friends, that spend time on each other's yachts, that control everything you see from Facebook, because recently Facebook just banned Farrakhan. Like, you can't find a Farrakhan video on Facebook. They just banned him, shut him down. InfoWars shut him down. Why are you so scared of the truth? They're not inciting violence. They didn't say go out and kill, murder, kill. But yet the KKK is a nonprofit organization with a tax deductible ID. How? How? So I just want you to wake up. I want you to know things that you didn't previously know. And even though we don't have a show from 5 to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, on Sunday, I am going to give you all of me as if it was 2 hours a day throughout the week. So it's going to be jam-packed every Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're going to have news. We're going to have politics. We're going to have interviews. And we're going to have the same amount of fun that we did last year, 18 months ago, before Prince reigned, who is absolutely amazing. I love being a new mom. But we're going to talk about all of that. I have some amazing guests lined up for you guys. If there's anything that you feel that I am missing, please hit me up. TaylaAndre. That is on all social media platforms. I am the Tayla Andre that you see all over the city as far as real estate is concerned. I am the Tayla Andre fighting for your children's education. I am the Tayla Andre that is going to wake you the heck up so you can understand what's really going on in society and make educated decisions moving forward. With that being said, there's a couple other stories that I want to touch on before we talk about what's coming up as far as politics is concerned. So Pan-Africa Free Trade Deal just came into force, and I think this is absolutely amazing. While U.S.-China trade tensions continue to escalate, Africa is quietly putting together a free trade agreement that spans the continent. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCFTA, came into force on Thursday, May 28th, after clearing a key procedural hurdle and being ratified by parliaments of 24 countries. The Commissioner of the Trade and Industry for the African Union, Albert Muchanga, confirmed in a tweet that the agreement is now in force and that the unified market would be launched on July 7th. What does this mean? This means a lot because now, when fully implemented, the trade will create a single market for goods and services by removing existing trade barriers across Africa. So, for instance, here in the United States, if you wanted to purchase something from Vermont, or if you wanted to purchase something from, California, you could just buy it and ship it to your state. Now, for instance, when Colorado first opened its market as far as marijuana is concerned, it's open to the public. Here in Massachusetts, you need a card. You need your marijuana card before you can even walk into a dispensary. And when California was like open trade, free trade, anybody outside of the state of Colorado could not purchase weed online and get it shipped to their state. That's very familiar. That's very similar to what's going on in Africa. You couldn't just, go online and buy something from Congo if you lived in South Africa. It was depending upon the trade agreements that you had with that country, right? So, fully implemented, a single market for goods and services by removing existing trade barriers across Africa. The agreement is expected to boost regional trade by reducing tariffs and allowing companies to expand and enter new markets. This is absolutely amazing. I think this is long overdue, and I am interested in the conversation in how and why Africans banned, where did these tariffs come from in the first place? Where did these laws and where did the bans come from? Like, why was it not unified one continent? Like, why were they not doing business with other countries? And I'm going to, I'm going to sit on that and come back next Sunday and tell you what I've learned. How about that? Or you could do the same and you can bring back to the table 617-282-0062 what you learned, and then we can unorthodox conversate that. But I think that is absolutely amazing. I don't know if you guys have been following Akon, but Akon is a beast in these streets. So Akon is giving millions of Africans access to electricity. In his new project, Akon is one of, I believe, 3 other investors that is creating we talked about this a couple years ago, where it's like a blimp in the sky, and that blimp allows the area radius to have access to Wi-Fi. So that's something that a new project that Akon's working on as well, and his Lighting Africa is doing well. I really mess with Akon, and I am so excited. One of his biggest projects that he's currently working on is launching a futuristic city. So there is this futurist. His name is Jacques. Oh, Lord. I can't think of Jacques' last name, but I'll find it and I'll post it on my social media. So the first time that I ever heard of a futurist was when I watched this documentary on Jacques, whatever his last name was. And he had a solution for everything, baby. Like, he had a floating city where you could be a part of the city and you guys are like on the ocean. Everybody's little unit, apartment, house was their own separate entity. And you could, leave the city of Boston and float to the city of California, and leave the city of California and float to the city of Minneapolis, or, leave, and it was just so dope how you could grow your own food, using the water and taking the water of the sea and filtering it for drinking water, using the sun to power everything in the head. Like, everything that I ever thought about in my whole life, it was just like he brought it to life. And even as a child, I swore that, meet George Jetson, that was going to be my future, that me and Elroy were going to be kicking it in the glass bubble. Like, I knew that we were smart enough and we could do all things through our imagination that creatively created things. Like, I knew that would be the future. And Jacques, I wish I knew his last name. Really just brought it to light to me. And with Akon's futurist society, and it wasn't just that, like, there was so many other things that Jacques, like housing that was not just affordable, but used the environment to cool down the house, or to heat up the house, or to use moss as a AC. And it was so out of this world and so futuristic to use the sink water in the toilet, to use the laundry water for the sink. Like, it just made sense, my dude, and it just was dope. And Akon has taken a similar approach in creating a futurist society where you can use cryptocurrency. So it's going to have its own cryptocurrency. Like, Akon is creating the city that I thought as a child I was going to own. I knew I was going to just open a city. I didn't know. As a child, I didn't know how it worked. I just knew that I wanted to own a city, and not just be the mayor or the governor, but I wanted to create the structure of the city so that it worked properly, because I didn't think cities worked well. Shout out to Akon. I'm so proud of him. I love everything that he's doing. I love Akon. And to think that all of this came from smack that all on the floor, smack that, give me, like, when you think, it's like Sweet Mickey. Mickey was an artist and became the president of Haiti. Like, we got to stop putting people in boxes. And while we're talking about putting people in boxes, we have The Game, who said that we would cripple America if we moved back to Africa. So rapper The Game was part of, was on Snapchat. And he said, we would cripple America if we moved back to Africa. And he didn't specify who we referred to, but I think we kind of get it. And a lot of people are in agreement with them. The comments are like, you know what? You're right. And it's not just the game. If you remember an article that came out, I want to say like 4 years ago, it was the France minister, I believe the minister of France at that time stated that, you know, if it wasn't for Africa, there would be no France. If it wasn't for the African countries, like they paid, African countries still paid reparations to France. If it wasn't for that money from African countries going in debt, paying their colonizers would be broke right now. If you didn't know, I tell you no lie. But I also don't want you to believe everything that comes out of my mouth. Read it for yourself. My macaroni and cheese on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 10, boo. I don't make trash. We got a call on the line, 617-282-0062. Let's pull up this. Let's pull up this caller. Good rising, caller. Hold on. Can you hear me now? Hey. Hold on 1 second. How about now? I missed you, baby. Come back. 617-282-0062. Shout out to the game. Shout out to Akon. Shout out to Sweet Mickey. Stop putting our artists in a box. What was it? Chameleonaire? Yo, Chameleonaire blew my mind. So you probably don't know, but Chameleonaire is like a real multi-millionaire, and it's not because of rap to riches. Chameleonaire is out here doing amazing things when it comes to financing businesses, structuring, investments. Good rising, caller, you live. Or good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Okay, so we got another call on the line. There you are. Say that again.
You were up on Dane Calloway.
Dane Calloway. Say that again because I missed the first 10 seconds.
I was wondering if you were up on Dane Calloway and his philosophies about America and the Aborigines.
School me, baby, because I'm not up to date.
Nah, he's just a YouTube guy, and I was just thinking you two guys were two critical thinkers. I'm Philip DeShays. I had a comment in your live chat.
Oh, hey, love. How are you? Thank you for interacting.
Right on. And I was thinking you two critical thinkers should get together. You know, he's saying that the African Americans are not from Africa, that we were already here, and the story was told to us back.
So that actually is a theory. I don't know how long you've been following, but we have a close relationship with Sabir Bey, and Sabir Bey has been up here quite a few times talking about how a lot of, when you do the math and when you look at some of the ledgers, you know, there's no way that they brought as many enslaved people that were on the continent of America from Africa, and proposes that a lot of the quote-unquote Negroes were a way to declassify the Native Americans so they could not own that much land. And if you're classified as a Negro and not as a Native American, you don't get access to the land, you don't get access to tax benefits. We can go ahead and put the rest of them on this reservation, make them poor and dependent upon us. And, you know, this land is your land, this land is my land, and it's really my land and it's not your land.
Right. With Dane Calloway had got a little deeper on that. He has got the date, you know, which 18 this and, you know what I mean, certain dates, and which law was passed at that date. Which law was passed at that date.
Well, I definitely will take a look at Dane Calloway as soon as we come off air. We got another 10 minutes together, so thank you so much, and I hope you tune in next Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
We'll do. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Love you and appreciate you. Hope you have an amazing day. We have another call on the line. Caller, are you there? My love, are you there? We lost them. Come back, come back, come back. So with that being said, like I was saying earlier, we are stressed for time, but there's a few other things that I wanted to discuss before we get up out of here. The Mass Department of Environmental Protection, Mass DEP, gave the green light to Boston's 3-year. Let me see if I can pull up this color really quickly. Good rising, my love. Good rising, my love.
Oh,
There you are. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't hear you. Say that again. Okay, so we're gonna work out these kinks. I can hear you, but you're muffled.
I want to say I appreciate you.
And why is that?
I don't know. I just started listening to your radio, like to you, like 3 Sundays ago, and I tune in now. You saying some deep shit, you know what I mean? Like you got my attention for sure. I'm trying to, the shit you're saying. I'm trying to get my friends to listen to you.
So how about we don't cuss? Cause this live.
Oh, wow. Sorry about that.
No worries. But thank you for listening. I've been with Big City for years. I took a break. We had a baby. The baby's 19 months, and we went from 5 days a week, 5 to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, to having to scale that back. So as a new mom, I could manage a little bit better. But there's over 600 shows on Mixclouds, iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook Lives, YouTube's TAYLAANDRE. Please continue to have your friends tune in. And if there's any topic that you want me to touch on or somebody that you want me to interview, just let me know, TAYLAANDRE, and I'll definitely get on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love you. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope you have an amazing day. So the Mass Department of Environmental Protection gave the green light to Boston's 3-year, $92 million proposal to rebuild the bridge to Long Island. I want to give a huge shout out to Liz Miranda, because she was one of the ones that wrote a letter to the city saying, like, listen, we got to do something about this Roxbury Monet cast problem. We're sick and tired of, the methadone mile. We don't deserve this. We deserve a quality of life. We deserve peace and happiness. And even though people deserve to get on the straight and narrow and get their lives together as far as the drugs are concerned, that should not, prohibit my happiness, my peace, my safety in my neighborhood. And it would not have progressed this long if this was in the South End, if this was in Jamaica Plain, if this was in, in Roslindale. It would not have persisted this long. So we need to get it together, and they definitely are going to give the green light for the 3-year, $92 million proposal to rebuild the bridge to Long Island. And in 2014, if you didn't know, Walsh closed the Long Island Bridge and demolished the bridge because of safety concerns. But it meant that the people who depended on the shelter and recovery programs on Long Island were forced to go elsewhere. Our efforts to create a regional recovery campus on Long Island have been always guided by our fundamental belief that every person deserves a chance at recovery, said Mayor Walsh, who is also a recovering alcoholic, for those who did not know. The opioid crisis we're living goes by the city lines and welcomes everyone's support as we take action to help those suffering to find their path to a better life. The Long Island Bridge carried the weight of those in need for more than 60 years, and it's our hope that the island will once again serve as a sanctuary that it was meant to be. Why did it take so long for you? Why you just didn't fix the damn bridge? 2014 was 5 years ago. We could have if the bridge is $92 million in 3 years to build, we could have had a bridge 2 years ago. Had you just fixed the structure that was already there, we could have had a bridge 2 years ago. I digress. I don't though. Because it makes me mad. It makes me angry because it was like people were complaining, like, don't close down a bridge. I remember the hearings. I remember the public outcry, like, these people are going to be in our neighborhoods. They do need a little sanctuary, home away from home, so they're not around This is going to seem really insensitive, and sorry, not sorry, but these are my personal feelings, my thoughts, and belief, and they do not reflect on nobody else but me. I truly believe when you are an addict and you are in need of recovery, what you need is to be secluded away from everybody. So them being on Long Island, the bridge should have been broken down, but it should have been broken down with all them on the damn island, like Shutter Island, trying to figure out their problems, their issues, and ironing it out, and then we'll ship you home when you have recovered. If we can sit here and take somebody who made a mistake and put them in jail for 15, 20 years for something that is non-violent, drug offending, hurt somebody's feelings, put them in jail and think that's going to rehabilitate them, and that's okay, I'm not understanding why it's not okay to ship somebody on an island, leave them there until they get full recovery, and then we can go ahead and worry about shipping you home so you could be a positive impact on society. That's just my 2 cents. Poverty in reading, the sad, troubling loss of school libraries and real librarians. This is an article. It's a dope article about the proof why school libraries help children become better readers. And I just want to use this time to give a huge shout out to the Hyde Park and Dudley Branch Library. So I lived in Hyde Park. I live in Dudley, and my children are avid readers, and that's because I'm not. Like, you will learn, if you don't know by now, that having my 3rd and 4th grade education almost stripped from me. And if you don't know that story, we'll talk about it at a later date. But I wanted to make sure that my children were properly educated and did not go through the struggle that I currently, at 36 years old, I'm still going through. I struggle with dyslexia. I don't need somebody to sit down and do a 3-hour test with me for me to be like A, B, C, D, H, B, C, U. Oh, my bad. It's like, I clearly on air, you like, damn, Tayla, you got real dyslexia. It's really real. So I took my children often to the library. When we lived in Birmingham, Alabama, we knew all our librarians by heart, like by first name. And still to this day, Prince Rain's going to be in the same boat. And I just absolutely love librarians that love being librarians. And it is amazing how they like know the entire Dewey Decimal System. You're like, I'm looking for a book. It's in Dewey Decimal System. And we don't even use Dewey Decimals anymore. It's just like, go to the 4th row, 3rd partitioner on the right-hand side. Shout out to the librarians. We have commenced our 2 hours together. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. These stories and so much more on the Wake Up with Tayla Andre Facebook page. And if you are not on Facebook, you can definitely follow on Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr. I'm everywhere. My favorite is Twitter. And the reason why Twitter is my favorite is because if you have a complaint, a question, or just, anything, you went to Dunkin' Donuts and the lady in front of you took 15 minutes and got your order, Twitter will find her and get your order back. No, I'm just joking. But if you do have an issue, you can contact companies on Twitter, and I promise it's like customer service on crack. It's amazing. That was a little insensitive. Not sorry. Last but not least, I want to let you know that on June 28th, Friday, the premiere of Sellers Kitchen is at the Blackman Theater at Northeastern. I was in a film, or I am in a film, and I have not seen the film. And I said this last week, and I will say it, I never knew. I thought premieres were just like glitz and glam and famous and ha, 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 like look at me. But premieres are when the stars actually get to see the film. And I'm in a film, and the premiere is when I first get to see the film. So I'm really excited about June 28th. I'm having my dress made this Friday, and most likely my cousin will do my makeup, and Fabrice will do my hair, and I will be on the red carpet for Sellers Kitchen, and I'm super, super, super excited. I hope you come and hit the red carpet with me and watch the movie of Sellers Kitchen, a Haitian-American director, producer, writer, writing about a chef coming from Haiti to America and what he had to deal with from triumph to from tragedy to triumph. It's an awesome film. Shout out to Ralph. Shout out to Faith Naturals. Shout out to, and we're still gonna, like, all the best food in the city. We're gonna talk about that. Some of these Black-owned businesses, we're gonna talk about those. We're gonna talk about it all. And if there's anything you want to bring to the table, extra 617-282-0062. Social media, TAYLAANDRE. We are live every Sunday, 88.5 FM from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. Mwah.